Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We'll get rolling if we can have the two candidates come up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to the 28th State Senatorial Debate held by the Republican Club of York and the York Dispatch. I first want to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is right back here. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming. My name is Joel Ogle. I'm the Vice President of the Republican Club of York. I want to get right into it as we are on some time constraints with media. To moderate our event tonight is Mr. Bill Toth of Fox 43, so please give him a hand.
Thank you, Joel, and hello, everybody out there. As you heard, my name is Bill Toth. I'm from Fox 43. Thanks also to the York Dispatch, the York County Republican Committee, and the JCC for sponsoring such a great event. I have two little girls, they're 7 and 9, and they are ballerinas. Sometimes they're ballerinas, and they would be on the stage dancing with their tutus and their ballet shoes and things like that. I promise tonight I will not put on a tutu or any ballet shoes or dance around any questions. Because next week we have a very important day coming up. I think it's Election Day, maybe next week, someone told me. Yeah. Primary, thank you. But either way is next Tuesday, so obviously a big day for all of us here. And thanks for coming out, for listening to the candidates tonight about all the important issues that affect us as citizens of York County and Pennsylvania and as Americans. So thanks for coming out. First thing we're going to do here is the candidates are going to introduce themselves, and then after that we're going to get into the structure of the debate and talk about how that whole thing works, and we'll kind of go from there. So we're going to start with Zack Hearn. He is going to introduce himself. He's got about a 5-minute time period if he wants to take up the whole time period. Go ahead. Go ahead. I gave the candidates a choice to either use the podium or the table, so it's up to their discretion at this point.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah, that's working.
First, let me thank the York Dispatch, Fox 43, the York County Republican Club, and the York Jewish Community Center for putting this together. As someone who has had to plan for similar events, I know it can be difficult logistically to ensure that something like this can occur. I also would like to thank each of you for attending this evening. It is always encouraging to see people attend events like this. It is a true testament to the democratic experience. For the last several months, I've been speaking with residents. Whether during petition signing or simply knocking on doors, it has been an incredible experience speaking with neighbors regarding our common concerns. Through these discussions, it has become increasingly evident that effective advocacy is needed in Harrisburg to address our concerns. For the past 4 years, I've been employed by the American Legion in Washington, D.C., advocating for veterans' disability benefits. It requires more than simply advocating for a particular bill or policy. It means having an understanding how it will impact those affected, whether positively or negatively. It requires a little skill at being a soothsayer and trying to predict each policy's impact, an understanding of how to maximize a particular benefit while minimizing damage to others. and a passion for helping others improve their lives. My decision to seek this office was not easy. First, few of you in this room even knew of my existence. Second, I truly enjoy the work I do advocating for those who have sacrificed so much in defense of this nation. However, as I spoke with family and friends, it became evident that a voice should be provided that does not look just at short-sighted solutions. Prosperity cannot be achieved simply by addressing a symptom. Instead, you must focus upon the disease. We must properly address the property tax concerns that plague the district. Harrisburg has woefully failed to consider our concerns through its unbalanced funding formula. Pension concerns continue to plague school districts, municipalities, and the state government. The issues are not going away, and we can no longer simply put our heads in the sand. These issues need to be addressed. Recently, Standard & Poor's questioned Pennsylvania's viability when hit with another recession and threatened a credit downgrade. Quite simply, ignoring the obvious is not in the interests of our future. Again, I thank you for all attending this event this evening and the organizers for this and to ensure that this can occur. And I look forward to this evening's discussion regarding issues and concerns we all face.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Scott Wagner.
Actually, if you don't use the podium, you'll end up blinded. The lights are. We'll both have a tan by the end of the evening. Good evening. I'm Scott Wagner, the current senator representing the 28th District of York County. On March 18th, voters in the 28th Senate District made history by electing me as the first ever write-in candidate in Pennsylvania to serve in the legislature in Harrisburg. I am here tonight that while I am the incumbent senator, having been elected on March 18th, I'm running for re-election in the primary on May 20th to serve a new 4-year term in the Pennsylvania State Senate starting in January of 2015. Since I announced my candidacy last September and throughout my campaign, I've asked people in York County this one simple question: are you happy with how Harrisburg operates? I've asked this question dozens of times and not a single hand has raised. I'm in a unique position, having been elected 7 weeks ago, and I have served 6 weeks in the Senate. The problems in Harrisburg are actually worse than I suspected. And here's the reason Harrisburg is gridlocked. There are 253 legislators, 2,600 staffers, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 lobbyists, and zero leaders. Harrisburg needs to change the way it does business. I intend to lead the effort for massive changes in the way Harrisburg operates. For over 20 years, we've been sending people to Harrisburg who were elected at an early age with no real-life experience other than serving on a school board, serving as a county commissioner, working as a staffer for a House or Senate member, or were employed in local or state government. These people were instantly sucked into a bad system in Harrisburg. Most of the people serving in Harrisburg have become career politicians. Here's the difference between myself and many of the people in Harrisburg. I come from a 35-year business background. That means I have 35 years of private sector business experience. My years in the private sector have required the following qualities for me to have survived and been successful. I have learned how to become a leader and provide leadership to the people that I work with. Leadership is a very important quality in a person. A leader must be decisive and have the ability to think quick and make decisions. Leadership means being responsible. In 2002, I read an article by retired General Colin Powell, and I quote from the article, this is lesson number 1. Being responsible sometimes means pissing people off. And he goes on to say, good leadership involves responsibility to the welfare of the group, which means that some people will get angry at your actions and decisions. I expect in Harrisburg I will ruffle some feathers and will make some career folks in Harrisburg uncomfortable. But it is worth it because this is the only way we will get real change in Harrisburg. If you want change, I will work to change the status quo. A leader must be a risk taker also. A leader has to be willing to step out front and take a risk. An effective leader hires the best people possible and has to be willing to fire those people if they do not perform to expectations. A successful leader must have a vision of what the future will look like. In 1985, I had a vision to start a company called York Waste Disposal, which over a 12-year period grew to employ 350 people. In 2000, I had the vision to start a company called Penn Waste, which today employs 340 people, and 3 weeks ago we began construction of a $20 million recycling facility to serve our customers in the future. A leader has to be a person who is willing to learn other people's stories. Everyone has a story, from the loader on the back of a garbage truck to a brain surgeon or a veteran. A leader has to be a good listener. Listen, get the facts, and make a decision. Over my 35-year private sector career, I've learned every aspect of finance. Most elected people in Harrisburg do not understand the complexity of bad financial decisions. A very bad financial decision was made in May of 2001 when the House and Senate voted to increase their own pensions by 50% and other people in the state pension system by 25%. This is the very reason we have the current pension crisis. To make it worse, the House and Senate voted to make the increases effective back to everyone's day to hire and changed the formula to calculate pensions. In addition, Harrisburg has a spending problem, not a revenue problem, and I'm seeing it firsthand. Every candidate talks about job creation. Over a 30-year span, I have started almost a dozen companies who have employed hundreds of people. People want a good job with good benefits. People want a company with leadership, good leadership, so their futures are secure. It is clear to me that in order to change Harrisburg, we need people who are willing to lead and facilitate changes. I can assure you that I will be out front providing leadership to solve Pennsylvania's problems. I will continue to fight on behalf of the taxpayers.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now let's talk about the structure of this debate. Each candidate will have 5 questions with 4-minute responses. And then also each candidate will have 3 separate 2-minute rebuttals used at their discretion. We have a timekeeper down below here. We have a 1-minute countdown sign, a 30-second countdown sign, and also a stop sign. And the candidates will have another closing period of 5 minutes long. We will alternate back and forth between each candidate with each question. So Mr. Hearn started first with this introduction. Mr. Wagner will get the first question here. Currently, there are 2 competing ideas regarding property tax reform. House Bill 1189, which gives school districts more control through different forms of taxation, and Senate Bill 76, which provides for a larger sales and income tax. Which idea are you in favor of, or is there a different fix to the issue altogether?
Well, the answer to that, we're talking about House Bill 1189, and that's Seth Grove's optional property tax elimination act. It allows school districts to choose to use an increased earned income tax or business privilege tax to reduce property taxes. And as the name implies, they would not be required to do so, and therefore there are no guarantees that homeowners will see their property taxes reduced or eliminated. 2 weeks ago, I signed on as a co-sponsor of Senate Bill 76. Senate Bill 76 eliminates school taxes and changes the sales tax structure. It kicks sales tax from 6% to 7%. There are various items that are currently not taxed that will be taxed. There will be a change in the personal income tax rate from it's a 3% range, 3.5% to 4.06. I am not in favor, and to be clear, I'm not in favor of House Bill 1189. Again, I co-sponsored. I'm the 26th senator that is a co-sponsor of Senate Bill 76. Do I think Senate Bill 76 is perfect? No, I don't think it's perfect, but we have to start somewhere. And Harrisburg for years hasn't started anywhere, and we have to start somewhere.
Mr. Hearn, you get the same question.
When I was going through the county, going through the petition signing and knocking on doors, a lot of people have brought this issue up. One of the top issues they say is, well, down in Maryland, this is how they fund property, which is true. They do. They fund school districts through.
We're sorry, folks, we're having some audio issues. We're trying to get this microphone off the
How's that? All right.
Trying to record it back there and having problems recording. I think the audience can hear you. It's just the TV media people are having some issues in the back.
So in Maryland, they do the overwhelming majority of their school funding through state income tax. Now, what the difference is in Maryland, they tax pensions, they tax Social Security, they tax dividends. This isn't something that Pennsylvania tax policy currently encourages or currently uses. This isn't a policy that I would endorse either, because I don't want to have the seniors also having to pay taxes in this regard. Now, one of the big issues is that, and I know that Senator Wagner has said that you would go from $65,000 to $95,000 as far as tax liability. This was the same argument that was used for the transportation package, that this cost would be passed off to the consumer. So instead of the fatal gunshot that's dealt with the property tax, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's important that we can figure out a policy that we can change the funding formula back to where it was 20 years ago, that we deal with the cyber charter school issues, that we deal with the unfunded mandates. These are the issues, the pensions, the prevailing wage issues. These are the issues that are facing York County school districts. This is what I discussed a couple weeks ago with some school board members, that the large parts of their budget, and yes, there have been issues that school boards where you sit there and scratch their head every now and then, but the large part of their budget stems from dealing with these issues. Thank you.
All right, question number 2. We'll go back to Mr. Hearn. We can all agree as Republicans that we have a pension problem in Pennsylvania. What is your plan to fix the pension crisis?
Back in September, the American Legislative Exchange Council recognized 4 states, Rhode Island, Michigan, Utah, and Alaska, for the way that they've shifted from 401k, or I'm sorry, from a pension format to a 401k format. So it's been proven that it can succeed. Now, one of the best areas that they've said, or one of the states that have really prospered in this area has been Utah, where they created a hybrid approach. And this is what's being pursued right now in the Municipalities Act that was, or the Pension Act dealing with municipalities recently in Harrisburg. You can't, if you go strictly to a 401k, you're putting the tax liability strictly on the taxpayers. If you go to the pension, the hybrid system, then it's a way for us to wean it off, and we're not going to be getting hit quite as hard in dealing with the 401k structure.
Since I've been in Harrisburg, I've seen the hybrid proposal. It's an interesting concept, but I believe in the private, as in the private sector, the 401k concept works, and I believe that the 401k concept has to be investigated. We need to run the numbers, and we need to understand what the end result is going to be. But I will tell you that the problem is so huge today, we have to do something. And the people that have, and I want to be clear on this, the people that have pensions are not going to have their pensions taken away. But we have to start the clock on a new date and time going forward, that we deal with this pension crisis going forward. And again, the can's been kicked down the road. Do I have every answer? I do not have every answer, because I need to be locked in a room with some financial people for probably 3 to 5 days to really understand, the impact of moving from the pension system to a 401k system. We have a 401k system at the companies I operate, and they're working well, and they're great returns. The employees are able to put in a portion. The company has a match. We've had good investment results. It's a system that works, but we have to get away from this making promises to people that are never going to work.
Just want to make sure in the back, are we okay with audio the way it's working now? Hold the mic close. Is it better at the podium? Instead of me running around and sticking my arms in and out trying to get... All right, gentlemen, keep the microphone close to your face or come up to the podium, please. This question goes to Mr. Wagner. Number 3, liquor privatization is something that many in the 28th District will support. Do you think the House-passed version is the correct plan, or is there another solution to the issue?
Well, to be clear, House Bill 790, the House would, again, the plan would phase out the state out of the retail and wholesale liquor system. And we have been discussing a plan in the Senate, and again, unfortunately, most people on the outside know more than we know on the inside. But essentially, the House versus the Senate plans are privatization versus modernization. The bottom line is, at some point, we need to be out, and soon, we need to be out of the retail, liquor, and wine business. And the wholesale business is something that the state can either continue to operate or hire a contractor to operate that system. I believe by bringing a contractor in to operate that system, it will be much more efficient. There are many, many things that are flying around, and I will tell you that 2 weeks before the election, if I walked into a room, people scattered because they wanted to stay away from me. In the last 7 weeks, I have more friends in Harrisburg than you can ever imagine, and most of them are involved in the liquor issue. And there are the beer distributors, and there are the taverns, there are the grocery stores, there are the convenience stores. And the bottom line is that the beer distributors and taverns do not want any licenses expanded. They don't want any additional licenses. A problem we have in the state system right now, we have about 1,100 licenses, liquor licenses, that are in escrow, not generating revenue, where there would be a tax, sales tax derived on that revenue. We have to have a method to get those licenses back out on the market so that they're generating revenue and generate, tax revenue. It wasn't the intent of this system to have almost 1,200 liquor licenses parked in escrow not doing anything. There's huge demand for these licenses. So I believe that the liquor store system needs to be disbanded. It needs to be done sooner than later. And unfortunately, there are so many different interest groups in Harrisburg, nibbling away at this issue. My prediction is that liquor is almost going to become back burner because we have other very large issues that have to be dealt with immediately.
There is no place for the state to be selling liquor and having essentially a government monopoly. It's the idea for those that have religious objections to it, and if you think about it, it is kind of comical that the state can actually sell you a product that you consume, albeit a little too much, but you could consume and get arrested for the consumption of the product that they sold. We need to sell them, and I believe that 790 was the reasonable, rational approach to dealing with it. That there's a phase-in process, a way that the state can divest its interests within the liquor privatization or the state stores, and start putting it on the open market, and to encourage capitalism as far as the sale of liquor.
Next question starts off with Mr. Hearn. The newest transportation bill was signed into law last November. As a state senator, would you support repealing this legislation? And if so, how would you fund our transportation needs in your county?
I think the transportation bill was an example of the gridlock that occurs in Harrisburg. This is something that's been going on for 10, 15 years, people complaining about. And it really astounds me that we sit here, even after the fact of the bridge collapse in Minneapolis, that one of the core functions of government, that we could not get a transportation package through. The fact that we waited time and time and time again. We waited. Meanwhile, these roads worsened and worsened and worsened. If this bill here was not the greatest bill in the world, but it was probably the best bill that you could get. And I think that one of the biggest concerns, and I know that Senator Wagner had indicated that he was in favor of some sort of, I don't want to jump the gun on you, but had in favor of some sort of registration increase. But to me, this is a user tax. This is one of those things that if you use the roads, if you use the vehicles more often, then you're paying more through gasoline. Whereas somebody who is a senior citizen who may only be driving 3, 5, 7,000 miles a year versus a person like me who drives 65 miles one way to catch a train, then I should be picking up this tab much more so than the person who really does not drive all that often.
I'm going to rephrase the question. Repeat the question. The newest transportation bill was signed into law last November. As a state senator, would you support repealing this legislation? If so, how would you fund our transportation needs in York County? We had to do something last year. I did not support the bill that was passed in the form that it was passed. I did support passing transportation legislation. I went to our local delegation, started with Stan Saylor, and I met with the governor. I took a group of people. We met with the governor. We met with the Secretary of Transportation. The next day after the meeting, a staffer from the governor's office provided me with all the number of vehicles in the state of Pennsylvania. There are 11,700,000 vehicles registered in the state of Pennsylvania. A car, most of the cars in the parking lot here tonight pay a registration fee of $36 per year. You go to Maryland or any of the border states around us, Maryland is $135 for 2 years, $67.50. I suggested to the delegation that we increase license fees and stay away from the oil cap or the oil franchise cap, which have led to gas prices which are somewhere between 12 and 18 cents per gallon more. What I would support is rolling the tax structure back to be competitive with neighboring states. Rutgers is very much impacted by the sale of gasoline in Pennsylvania when someone drives across the border into Maryland. But the reality is, and I'm going to tell people what they need to hear, there's a cost to operate our road infrastructure, and we need to get license fees in a range where, they should be. And again, if the license fees went to $67 to $70 a year for a car versus the oil franchise cap, and Zack mentioned senior citizens. I think the senior citizen over a period of a year driving 3,000 to 5,000 miles will save money on an increased license system versus the increased gas tax system.
Next question goes first to Mr. Wagner. As an elected official, you are confronted with the need to work with people on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers. How will you get 26 votes in the Senate and 102 votes in the House to accomplish major policy initiatives?
Here's what I've learned in the Senate in the last 7 weeks. We have 26 Republicans. We have 3 to 5 Republican senators that are from the Southeast. They have accepted a lot of union money over the years, and they are tough votes to get. I have met with 3 of the senators from the Southeast, working on an initiative that I'm working on behind the scenes to educate them and convince them to see if we could get their vote for an initiative that I would like passed in June. The problem we have, and I will tell you that after the primary election, I'm going to actively work with Senate leadership to try to gain between 4 and 6 Senate seats in Harrisburg. So if we had a margin of 30 to 20, and we don't have the Southeast votes are what are holding everything up, and in the Senate and in the House, and it's a fact of life. I'm going around and I'm meeting different senators. I've spent time with Democrats. I actually was on PCN last night with a Democratic Senate Democrat from Philadelphia last night. I'm going around and meeting people and learning the lay of the land. And I'm learning, as I mentioned earlier, everybody's got a story. I'm learning their story, and I want to understand their perspective on things. That's what's made me successful in the private sector. I will tell you something else that may surprise people, but this afternoon, 2 weeks ago, I received a letter from the president of the AFL-CIO based out in Pittsburgh. He told me that during the election that he heard that I made comments regarding the union, and they didn't appreciate the comments, but they took them with a grain of salt. This afternoon, I met with 4 representatives and the president of the AFL-CIO, and we had a instead of a 45-minute conversation, it went about an hour and 15 minutes. And I gave them my position, I heard their position, and we're gonna meet again so I can learn more about their positions, and they're gonna learn more about my positions. But the bottom line is, I'm going to Harrisburg to provide leadership. I did not get where I am today by being an adversary. Something that the union president said, because I think they're concerned about me, because again, I'm a different breed of cat in Harrisburg. They're looking for win-win. They're not looking for win-lose. And you know what? That's how I've operated in the business sector for over 35 years. Win-win. I want the other side to win, and I want to win. And I think that sitting down with people and learning all aspects of what their positions are, they understand my position. I think we can close gaps. But right now, it's a bad system, and I will tell you, it's going to be difficult to get 26 votes in many situations over the next 30 to 60 days, especially with the budget coming around.
There used to be a time within the Republican Party that you had Rockefeller Republicans that would span from the far liberal Republican to the far conservative Republican. For the last 25 years or so, I think the Republican Party's been trying to turn that into a big tent concept again. And the first thing that I recognize is that Philadelphia's got different demographics. As a result, you're going to have different leaders, different representatives from that area. I think one of the first things you need to do, and I do this at work down in Washington, is that you find out the common areas. You find out what exactly you're trying to accomplish and what you can agree upon, and then you can build from there. I think the idea of going in there and trying to create a divisive tone, I don't think that's beneficial to people. But that's really what politics and legislating is about. Relationships. I deal with it every day. When we go up to the Hill or we go over to VA, it has to be about relationships. It has to be about an element of trust, and that's the mentality that I would take up there.
Microphone will stay with you. Each candidate now will have a 5-minute closing session.
Earlier this evening, Senator Wagner discussed his business interests and his success in business. And throughout this entire process, I've been sure to tell the reporters that I admire the work that you've done. It takes a certain amount of business acumen. But I remember back when I was in college, and we had this discussion. It was a political science class, and we said, why does government not operate like a business? And it's simple. It comes down to business administration versus public administration. Business administration operates on a vertical plane where it looks out for the interest of itself, rightfully so. It has to advance its profit. It has to help its employees. It needs to succeed. Public administration goes on more of the horizontal plane, where you look at the public, look at how things are impacted. That's the difference between Senator Wagner and myself. And I appreciate you coming out this evening, I really do. And I appreciate everybody else coming out this evening and for everybody putting this on. And I ask for your support on May 20th. Thank you.
This is going to be unusual for me. I'm going to go in more of the relaxed mode. But let me
we have
tell you
5
what.
minutes.
Let me tell you what I've seen in Harrisburg, and I'll tell you what we're up against over the next 60 days. On April 29th, it was reported by our appropriations chairman and caucus that the state was approximately $450 million short of revenue for the first 4 months of this year. Last week, it was reported that the budget gap is going to be somewhere between $1 million and $1.2 million. And when you start looking at a revenue shortfall, I sat back and I thought to myself, these guys, people up in Harrisburg just don't understand. We came through the worst winter ever. At our company, Penn Waste, we spent $52,000 in snow removal, unprecedented numbers. And I think of my friend Bill Thornton up the street in Manchester. I'm just thinking, how many less cars did Bill sell in 3 months? How many less cars did the Apple car dealership sell? And if it was 500 less cars that were sold in a 3-month period because of the winter, that's 500 cars that didn't generate car sales that didn't generate revenue, and with a sales tax of 6%. So this is not a surprise to me. But I'll tell you where we are in Harrisburg. We have serious problems, and I'm going to tell you, they're bad. This is like a household that 3 or 4 years ago just spent and spent and spent. They racked their credit cards up and continued to spend. And now it's really getting tough. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul. But I think a revenue shortfall, a budget shortfall, is the writing on the wall that we are going to have to take some very serious steps. And, you know, many of the issues in Harrisburg, and I've had a lot of people ask me, there's the Marcellus Shale issue. There's the Medicaid expansion. You know, Medicaid expansion, you know, basically, you know, the federal government's going to come in and mandate, and they're going to provide funds, but after, and they're going to decline by 10% over the next 6 years, and we in Pennsylvania are going to get stuck with this mandate. Right to work is big. And why I keep talking about right to work, I have an interest in a business in Greenville, South Carolina. I've talked about it before. It's 4 miles from the BMW plant. 4 million square foot plant that BMW builds all their X Series cars. 30 miles away in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Michelin's building a $750 million tire plant. There's no way that Michelin would ever come to Pennsylvania and build a plant only to be unionized maybe a year or two later. You know, we keep talking about the Delaware loophole. I hear that a lot. And, you know, we do have to look at our tax policies. I'll tell you, I watch continuously, whether it's C-SPAN and other, you know, Fox News, and they all talk about, they have Senate members on in Washington and House members. We need to talk about the tax structure. This past weekend, I was reading either in Bloomberg Business Week or the Wall Street about a new term. It's called inversion, INVERSON. And what that is, there are companies out buying. There was a drug company that was in the process of buying a drug company based in Ireland. Their tax rate, their corporate tax rate was like 12% versus a rate that's almost 3 times that in the U.S. You have Apple Computer that has $137 billion in cash offshore, and they're not bringing it onshore because they'd have to pay the difference between the tax they paid where they are and the U.S. tax. So we have a lot of trickle-down problems, but we do not need the federal government in here telling us that we need programs, and then we're stuck with paying the programs. And in the school districts, you know, I went out to all the school districts in the Senate district in the last 30 days and asked them for funding revenue from the state. Central York School District in the last 4 years has gotten 22% more state funding from the state, where, you know, there are allegations being made on TV by candidates running for governor that Corbett has cut funding. That's not true. But that 22%, almost $3 million, has gone directly to paying for pensions and for benefits and wage increases. So we have a lot of problems in Harrisburg, and I'm in Harrisburg now. I ask for your support next week on May 20th. I'm running for re-election. I would like to be re-elected for a 4-year term. The difference is, I'm trying to say this. I'm doing this because I believe it's the right thing, and we need a leader in Harrisburg from this district, and I intend to be a leader. And as I look around with the York delegation, I expect to lead the York delegation, and maybe with some of my leadership skills, we can get our delegation to be stronger and bring more to York County.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's give them a round of applause, please. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Joel.
Thank you, Bill Toth. Let's give Bill Toth a round of applause. This is the third debate we've had with the club. We've done a debate in the 169th, which is the New Hanover seat, the 93rd, which is an open house seat, and now the 28th. We're very excited, and we will be moving forward after the primary against the Democrats. And then please remember, May 20th, plenty of primary races out there, 94th House, 93rd House, 169th House, 196th House. The governor is uncontested. Scott Perry is uncontested. But we are excited about taking on the Democrats in November. So thank you both for your time. Excited about May 20th. And if you have any questions, they're here until you're gone. So thank you guys, and have a great night.